All right, so last week we looked at the school self-evaluation and we kind of looked into what were the documents that we needed to complete that process and the information that was vital to complete in that process. So we're now going to move into phase two of the SIP, what that entails, what it looks like. We're going to be looking a little bit at what baseline data means and how we align this document to the end. All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you. We are at session 2. And okay. All right, so let's just move right in. Now, what makes up the SIP document? So the SIP document has four major pieces, which is your tactical and operational plan, the implementation plan, your monitoring plan, and your financial plan. Now, your SSC, once completed, will go through to your education officer who will approve the SSC based on the criterias that are outlined in the rubric that you have to complete your SSC. Now, once this is approved, you can now move into phase two of your SIP, which is looking at your tactical and operational plan and financial plan. And these are drafts. Now, phase three will include the presentation of this draft to the stakeholders for consultation, for reviewing and fine-tuning. So your primary stakeholders, so this would be school board, other teachers that are not a part of your SIP committee, and depending on the level that you want this to be the consultation to take place on. You'll present this draft of your operational and tactical plan with your financial plan and also to your education officer. Then after this process, we're going to make adjustments based on surveys and things that you would have gone through that to make a final submission to your school board and your regional office for ratification. Now, once you have gotten to this stage, it now means that you are ready to move into phase 5 and you will look at your implementation and monitoring of this plan. Now, all of these documents are attached to the principal's action plan and the teacher's action plan when everything is done. So all of these documents are aligned in moving your school towards your 3 years plan. Now, once you find all the data that we would have digged out in our school self-evaluation, the Ministry of Education in Jamaica has 10 strategic objectives that are standardized across the entire education system in Jamaica. And these are the current ones leading up to 2028. So you can just give a view. We're going to look at them one by one. So, all right. Now, what your SSC gives to you for your SIP is a baseline data. And your baseline data is measurable outcomes that you have. So it provides a measurable starting point. So for instance, you looked at the performance of your cohort of students and you would have realized that 20% of your school population is reading below their grade level. This is a measurable starting point. This is what you're going to use to create a measurable target moving into the 3 years. So your baseline data presents you with a measurable starting point. Now, your operational and tactical plan. This is where your SIP comes alive. As I said, it breathes life into the plan. At this stage, you are thinking about your goals that you're going to create to match to each strategic objective that the ministry has. You're going to think about the targets you're going to set to meet these goals, the task you're going to complete to meet these targets, the activities, who is going to monitor this. You're going to identify resources that you need, who is going to be responsible for each of these part of these projects, and the process is repeated for each goal. This is what your tactical plan looks like. And as I said before, these are standardized documents. Now, this is just an example that I created for you. And we're looking at strategic objective number 1 for this example. Your school goals should be broad enough to cover the items that you want to meet the strategic objectives. Now, although question strategic objective number 1 speaks to parental involvement, what I usually do is to create a space for stakeholder involvement because the other strategic objectives doesn't lend itself to creating a window to integrate stakeholder involvement. So this is where I usually integrate it into strategic objective number 1. Now remember that your baseline data gives you measurable starting points. So for instance, we're looking here and we see that only 60% of the parental support is being given to the school currently. And this information was taken from the PTA and other school activities that you would have. Now, school targets, remember that they need to be smart. They need to be measurable. So a school target, for example, we want to maintain the existing stakeholder relationships that we have. We want to maintain all of them, 100%. But we still want to grow this by 20% by 2028. We want to increase parent involvement, school activities by 10% from the 60% based on the baseline that we have working with by 2025. We need to, I didn't change the data list. I apologize. All right. And then you move on to your targets. Your assumptions is those things that you are hoping that will help to support you into implementing these targets and goals that you are putting in this tactical stage. So it's like we're going on a mission and we're laying out our tactical plan. Suppose we're working with the JCF and we're laying out our tactical plan, how we're going to tackle the crime rate down by Montego Bay. That's what your tactical plan is. We're laying out this broad framework to get into action. Now, each time you look at the strategic objectives, you're not to forget your NEI recommendations from your last inspection. What you need to do is to link the NEI recommendations based on the area. So if there is none that speaks to parental involvement, you put none and you leave it there. And then you match them to each strategic objective so that you have in the forefront of your mind, even if you think that you have exhausted this recommendation, put it back until you get a new set of recommendation to work with. Now, you break down each strategic objective into an operational plan. And this is what your operational plan will entail. Now, remember that these documents are standardized. Everybody's document will look like this. It's just the information that you're plugging in that will be different. All of us are using the same MOE strategic objectives. Your baseline will be different. Your NEI recommendations will be different. It is tailored to your school. So you can't borrow a target from the school next door because the school next door conditions are different from your conditions that you are facing. Your monitoring and implementation plan. Now, this is where you look at how, after you operationalize everything that you want to do from 1 to 10, and you've received your approval to move on, you want to talk about how you're going to monitor and implement this plan. Because remember now that we can write a beautiful plan, but the most important thing is how we're implementing this plan and how you monitor it. Because if we don't do these two things, it simply means that we're not evaluating along the way and this bus is going nowhere. So let's look at this little example here. I pulled from strategic objective, which speaks to minimizing the number of at-risk children and youth by 30% by 2028. One of the school goals was to utilize a wraparound service available within the QEC and region to support all stakeholders to address their social, mental, health, and academic needs that may affect their optimum student performance. Now, at-risk students are those students that we consider you must have a benchmark in your school of what you consider at-risk students to be. So suppose where I work, students scoring under 50% are at risk for me academically. Students that display certain behaviors continuously are at risk socially in my environment. So you must have parameters in your school. So this is a school target. If you never have it, we're saying to you, create a school target now. Because this is what good leaders do. You must have something in your school that creates a standard that you're working with for the next 3 years. So at this school, we are saying that we're going to articulate to the school community the parameters used by the school to identify students. So programs aimed at addressing students who are at risk by October of each year. That's my school goal. Currently, the NEI doesn't have any recommendation that matches with this objective I'm looking at. However, my first task into moving into creating to meeting this school target is to develop and disseminate a clear communication package, whether it be by brochures, presentation, and notices, outlining the criteria I'm going to use to identify the at-risk students and present this information to parents and stakeholders through scheduled meetings by October of each year. Because remember, I'm matching this task. Your task must be able, when you finish this task, you must be able to meet the target. So that's how we're aligning. Now, the activities in your monitor and implementation plan must match back how you're going to complete the task. And one of my first activity is to review and document the criteria used by the school. So as I said before, what is the parameters that you're going to use within your school to say who are these people who are at risk in your environment? Who you're including in this activity? Your GC, your teachers, your CIT, and when I say CIT, I mean your curriculum implementation team and your administrator. So we're pulling everybody together and we're going to come up with a plan. What are these parameters that we're working with? The output is what will you use? What will this task? What you want it to look like at the end? So at the end of implementing this task and this target, I must be able to see in this school a clear, transparent criteria for identifying at-risk students are communicated annually to school community by October. That's my output. And my means of verification is how will I verify that this is done? So you can have copies of the circulars you send out to your parents and your stakeholders or newsletters, among other things. This is just an example. And the monitoring is the person or persons in charge of monitoring the process. Now, your financial plan speaks to the money part of your SIP. How much money you're getting from the MOE, how much money you're getting from your local funds. You break down again. You're going to match each strategic objective by term. How much money do you plan to spend in term one based on strategic objective one and what you put in your operational plan? And you go across like this for each objective by each term. And this is a year breakdown. Then you have to break down again over a 3-year forecast what your budget will look like for the 3 year as well. Now you're going to break down your financial plan just a little bit more and you're going to take it bit by bit by each strategic objective, each goal, each target, and you're breaking down how you're getting the money, how the money will be spent. All right. So we're going to look at each strategic objective now. And we want to look at what are the things you're plugging in under each strategic objective. So I read this nicely put together strategic objective, maximizing parental involvement and engagement in the lives of all Jamaican children by 2028. If I'm a first-time administrator, what are the things I should be looking at in terms of targets and goals that I'm going to plug into here under these strategic objectives? You're going to be looking at parents in school. How do you want the parents to be involved in your environment based on what your baseline data is saying to you? You want to look at the community in school. How are you going to get the community involved in the school? So you're creating a goal and a target for that. How are you going to get the students in the community? Suppose one of your dreams is to have an annual program where you have outreach, community outreach, you're giving back to the community. How can the students be integrated into this? So you're looking at that when you're setting your goals and your targets and stakeholders in school. So you're pulling in everybody here. So when you're looking at your targets, you need to zero in on these things for your next 3 years. Your PTA attendance rate are some of the baseline data that you can pull on. The number of active stakeholders, the number of programs, parents and members of committee, initiative completed by parents and for parents' well-being. These are some of the baseline data you plug into your tactical plan when you're plugging in. So this is what you'll pull from your SSE to put into your tactical plan. Now, number 2, at-risk children. Your guidance program will have given you information in your SSE. You're going to look at the state of the information that you evaluated, and you're going to pull on those to set goals and targets. So your GC will come with their plan for the year, their guidance program from the year. You will pull from that to plug into your SIP. You're looking at student welfare, academic intervention programs, because remember, we're looking at risk children. Safety and security will come up here. The equipment, storage, drills that you do in the school, all of that information will be plugged in the at-risk part. You're looking at this in your SIP. What their programs for at-risk children in the curriculum, your HFLE, this is plugged in here. Your program for special needs, this is plugged in here. You're looking at student leadership, your clubs, your society, your extracurricular activities. All of these are plugged in. This is where you set targets for these programs in strategic objective number 2. Now, number 3 speaks to how you give access to quality education for Jamaican children from 0 to 29 years. Now, depending on your school, if it's an infant school, when you're setting your goal, you pick out your years. So you're going to say from 6 to 12 for primary, from 4 to 6 for ECC. If you're a high school, you will say from 12 to probably 18, 19, depending on where you stop. What you're going to pull in now to set your goals and targets, you're going to be looking at your enrollment data, your rate of dropout, the reasons you have evaluated and found that these are the reasons why have a high dropout rate. You zoom in on gender data, things like those. So the school population, you're setting goals for your school population. Suppose you want to increase it. Suppose you want to maintain it because you really don't have any more space. If you want to attract a certain level or caliber of students at your school, this is where you look at your goals and targets for this one. Now, number 4, we're moving into the digital age and digital technologies for effective teaching and learning, as well as institutional strengthening for the advancement of all teachers and students by 2028. So, how do you prepare the teachers and students for technology in the classroom? So, you're going to look at, pull from your SSE. You would have looked at your resources you have in terms of human resources. Are your teachers trained in the latest technology or based on what you have working with? Or do you vision to pull in more technology in your school? This is where you plug that in your SIP. How will this impact the students? When you're setting your targets, you need to look at the impact and the mode of teaching and learning. Are you going to be using I'm lost for words. So we'll get back to you on that. Are you going to be using a mixed approach of teaching and learning? So online plus physical school. All right. And then now we look at record keeping. And currently you are using, suppose you're using just hard copies and you want to move into a digital age. And this is where we're aiming at. It says digital literacy. How do you communicate with your parents? You would have pulled on data about the level of communication in your school, record keeping status, all of those things. This is where you outline your goals to improve and to meet this strategic objective. How will you improve the digital literacy of your parents and your teachers and your students? How will you improve your records? How accessible your records are to stakeholders, depending on the level of information that you want to be shared with your stakeholders. So you look at those things when you're setting your goals and targets based on where you are now. The question number 7, this is one of the major ticket areas. And this is looking at maximizing the educational performance of all students that you are responsible for at your institution. You're pulling on your national exam results, your internal exam results as your baseline data to put together measurable targets. Now, when you're looking at this performance, this strategic objective, you need to, when you're setting your targets, for instance, you're going to set to, don't just write, improve literacy by 10% by 2026. I don't know where you're coming from. So you're going to reword this target to say that improve the literacy rate at Appleby High School from 10% to 15% by July 2025. That's a smart objective. I know where you are and I know where you're going to. And I'll soon tell you why you need to state it that way. Because when you get to your variance, when you're looking at your evaluation matrix and you want to do your variance, you'll be able to say where you were, the results that you get back your results now, you do evaluation and you realize that you're only at 12%, you would know that you have a variance of 3% when you're doing your evaluation matrix. Remember, you need to pull out your evaluation, your weak strands, and your areas of concern, right? Now, question number 8. This is where you look at your teachers and your educational programs. You're going to look at the professional development of your teachers. So you're looking at their appraisals. This is where you pull the baseline data on your appraisals. This is where you're going to set targets that you're working on. Suppose in your school, your teachers are weak in number 1, how to teach, how best to teach and their knowledge. You're working on that. That's where you plug in your goal and your target for this. Teacher document submission. If you have a problem with supervision of teachers, this is where you plug in your goals and targets for this. Any intervention program that you have for students that you need to retool your teachers for, this is where you set your goals and targets for them in this section. Joan, you're writing on my screen. All right, so we're at strategic objective number 9. And this will look at your human resources, your financial, and the technological resources, and how you plan to increase the infrastructural support toward the achievement of the ministry's goals by 2028. This is where you look at your school building. If you need more furniture, the resources you need to take care of your SIP for the next 3 years, how you plan to get these resources, whether it be human, financial, or otherwise. How ready is your school to receive students and daily operations? This is where you plug in those goals and targets that you need to work on. And strategic objective number 10, looks at mostly policy development and to ensure that you are working within the parameters of interventional conventions, laws, and regulations that support the governance of your administration and accountability where you work. Now, the policies that you have at school, you would have reviewed them in your SSC, and their shortcomings, this is where you plug them in. So if you need to review your safety and security policy, this is where you put your baseline data. This is where you say what you're going to fix in your safety and security policy. List the policies that you don't have, those that you know that you're supposed to have and you need them. This is where you look at it. This is where you examine your school board and the functionality of them. Where do you see your school board in the next 3 years? How you're going to work on the school board to be more involved in the school, things like those. This is where you plug those goals and targets. Look at your SSC, your SIP, your evaluation matrix. This is where you say that one of your targets is to complete your school self-evaluation on an annual basis, your school's evaluation matrix at the end of each operational year. So you look at those things in this one, question number 10. And those would have covered all 10 of the strategic objectives that you have to look at. Now, what to focus on in finalizing your document? Your priority focus. No, your targets should be written in such a way that they can be evaluated. I would have given you an example. So you're moving from here to here. And why did I say that we need to do that? It will help you when you need to complete your evaluation matrix at the end of the academic year. When setting timelines, be sure to consider how long it will take to implement based on your situation at your school. So if you know that you don't have the capital to start a resource sent. For example, a reading program, because those are current issues now. And don't say that you're going to equip the resource room with 15 computers by the end of term one. Be realistic. If you know you don't have the money in the kitty, don't put that timeline. Because when you cannot meet that timeline, it means that you have poor planning. It means that you didn't consider the parameters that you have to work with when you were setting all of these timelines. Next, investigate the cost of completing projects as a financial aspect. This has implications for your budget. Now remember that there were three critical things that you would submit before you do your implementation and monitoring plan. Now, from your SIP, your school budget will be set. So don't say you need $10 to buy 10 student decks. And you, in your mind, you don't know how much for a student decks. At least try to have a baseline to know that a student decks will cost $5,000 each. So when you're setting the money parts in your operational plan, you would say that you need at least, better it is too much than too little. So you'll have little money to work with and a window and a room to work with. When you're selecting people to monitor, help you in monitoring your SIP. You need persons who are responsible and accountable, because this is a very important part of your SIP. It has implications. So when your school is being inspected, if you don't evaluate your SIP, it speaks to your type of leadership. So these are things that you need to consider when you're choosing person to monitor and to help you to implement. Be wise in who you choose and put on paper. Make sure these persons are proactive, they are accountable, and they will have what they need when time comes for this information. In the crafting of your SIP, it should be a collaborative process to ensure that you have the support of the stakeholders. Remember that we said that when you finish this draft, you need to put it out there for stakeholder consultation. Show them your plans. You want buy-in, because remember that you need persons, you're going to need money, you're going to need human resources. So you need to sell your product that you have. It's like you're coming up with a new product, or you're coming up with a new variety of something and you need support. So in crafting your SIP, let it be collaborative, because not only outside support, but inside support. Because if the teachers don't know what your SIP looks like, and they won't be willing to help you to implement it. When they are a part of it, they don't want to see it fail. Also, keep your school vision and mission in mind when you're moving in and setting your direction. Always remember what is your school's vision and mission. And when you're doing your SIP, in that first stage in your tactical and operational plan, this is the stage where, if you choose, you can revise your school vision and mission. Share the SIP with stakeholders, but I would have said that already. Now, your checks and balances. When monitoring the progress of your implementation plan, it is important that you refer regularly to the improvement plan to maintain focus on your school's priorities and goals. Now, if I said that I'm going to meet something by term one, when December come, my monitoring and implementation team, or if you want to use the entire SIP team, we should go now and we should look at all these tasks that we should have completed in term one, to make a note that X was completed. What is the update with X? How do we move forward? Are we on board to meeting this target by the end of June of the academic year? Maintain consistency between daily activities, the school purposes and priorities and goals. And that is in line with what I just said. Support your colleagues in the fulfillment of their allotted responsibility. If you know that you gave Ms. Rattigan to monitor this part of the SIP, it's not about micromanaging, but lend support to Ms. Rattigan. Just check on Miss Rattigan to ensure. Miss Rattigan, did you remember that we're supposed to do X? And Miss Rattigan, yes, Miss, I already do so and so. So make periodic checks to ensure that this is being done. Because at the end of the day, although you gave Miss Rattigan this part to monitor, as the administrator, everything comes back to you at the end of the day and the type of leadership that you are implementing. Adhere closer to your time frame, implement monitoring procedures, and identify adjustments that may further expedite effective implementation of your SIP. Now, your SIP is scored on a rubric, and your SIP is supposed to address real school needs. Now, when your education officer gets your school improvement plan, they will use this rubric as a benchmark to score your SIP. And it is done based on the following. So the requirements, does your goal match up to the strategic objective, as I said before? Are your targets related to the challenges identified in your SSE? So your targets cannot be in malice with your SSE. Don't tell me that you need a reading program and in your SSE, there was no data to say why your school needs a reading program. There was nothing to say that the students were reading below their grade level. There was nothing to support the fact that I needed a reading teacher. So these must be in alignment with each other. As I said before, don't forget your NEI findings. See it right there on the rubric there? Does your targets address NEI findings? Remember to match your NEI findings with the strategic objectives that they apply to. You're not going to find a recommendation to match with every strategic objective, but the ones that you get, make sure you align them. Do you have the appropriate resources to meet the needs of the target that you set? Will the task that you carry out will be able to meet the target? Remember, it's a series of alignments. This document must be aligned. Logical link between indicators and mean of verification. Your indicator should be clean, cream, clear, relevant, economic, adequate, and monitorable. So when you're writing your indicator, it must be relevant to what you're trying to achieve. Economic mean that it is, you have within your parameters, you have what it takes to cover the cost. It's not out of your reach. Is it monitorable? The way how you word it, will you be able to monitor it based on what you put there? And the last part, how do you link the goals and the indicators? The indicators of success are relevant to the goals and address the aspects required to reach that goal. Responsibility and accountability. These are very, very important parts of your SIP. Who is accountable? Who is responsible? Your financial plan. must be aligned to the approved annual budget. Sorry. Remember I said try to get at least a working current price of things when you're setting the money part of your SIP because it has implications for your annual budget. If you don't write down the right price, you're not going to get the money to complete what you need. Or you must be able to state how you're going to acquire the funds. And it must be realistic. The time, remember we spoke to the time? We looked at the alignment of activities and tasks. And if any line item receives a score of 2 and below, then the SIP must be rejected and the criterion must be addressed by the school before resubmission. So based on the score, if you get 39 or more, your SIP can move forward. If you get lower than that, it means that you have to go back and correct certain things and resubmit. Now, when I mentioned your school evaluation matrix, your operational plan, over the 3 years, you will have things that you will complete in year 1, year 2, and year 3. Now, at the end of year 1, you complete what is called a annual school improvement plan evaluation matrix. And this is where you're going to take your MOE strategic objectives. Remember, you're pulling all of this information from that big plan that you have. And you're going to plug in the results. So for strategic objective number 1, whatever you had in year 1 to be completed, you're going to put in your results. And then you're going to calculate your variance. Now, the variance is a difference between your school targets and your actual results. So this is just an example. And let's look at this for just a bit. So in year 1, my SIP target for language arts, I needed to be at 54% in terms of pass rate for language arts. And my actual result was 52. My variance, my mathematics, 38, 44. That means I surpassed my target that I had. So my variance is a plus and not a negative. So remember that your variance is the difference between your target set and the actual results that you get. All right, and this comes to the question and answer part. That's the end of the part 2 presentation, and we're now going to take questions. If you're not clear on anything, now is the time that you're going to ask the questions.
Okay. Wonderful. You can also, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Radigan. You can also put your questions in the chat. We're going to be checking the chat to see if we see some questions. And also, also, if you are on YouTube, you can put your questions in. You can also put your questions in the chat there. So let me go and check for any questions now. And you can also raise your hands. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. Let me see what's in the chat. All right. Well, okay. There's a question. It's not directly related to the presentation, as in trying to get clarification. Says, are the templates available on the TLI? Could they be shared with us, the templates? That was asked the last time. I think your answer is you sharing your templates?
No, not. It's me.
The presentation templates or the templates for the SIP?
I think it's your personal templates. I'm assuming that's what it is.
Yeah,
Or both.
Mrs. Radigan, no, Dr. Gordon, it's me. I'm gonna put some work on the TLI in, that's Belize. It's educators from Belize.
Okay.
So they will get an email from us with work
Oh,
pertaining to the CPD hours and their platform. So
okay, so
that
it's
work will be
unrelated.
placed. Yeah, it's unrelated to this because
Okay,
it's going to be on their
all
platform.
right, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
some questions are coming in. Thank you, Dr. Dice.
Yeah.
Can you shed a little light on the monitoring team?
All right. So your monitoring team, what they basically do is to ensure that you are on target to meeting your time frames that you set out. So what they do, they will be a part of your SIP team. So you assign to a set of persons parts of the plan that they will monitor, that they will help you to monitor as the administrator. For instance, your guidance council, you may put your guidance council to monitor their guidance program because they wrote that program. And then you check in periodically to ensure that at the end of December, your guidance council would have evaluated whatever they set out to do in term one. So that speaks to the fact that they monitored, and monitor means that there's actual data to say what was done, and you have means of verification because evidence must align to all of this monitoring. So if I wrote down that, suppose I'm a supervisor and I am to monitor the lower school division in terms of parts of the SIP in question 7. And I wrote an evaluation that the teacher, X amount of evaluations, walk-in was done. We found that teachers were doing X, they didn't have plans, they didn't evaluate plans, X, Y, Z. And I cannot present the means of verification to match up with this. So as I said, in your monitoring team, the persons must be accountable. You must have data to match with what you're evaluating and monitoring because it speaks to your means of verification.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ms. A. Thomas Golden is asking, she said, actually, thank you for such an enlightening presentation. How many goals would you recommend for each strategic objective?
It depends on your school. It depends on the size of your school. When you become more au fait with the document, you are able to set broader goals. So if you are knowledgeable and you can set a broad goal, and then from that broad goal, you can pull 5, 6 targets out of it. It depends on how you're able to word. If you know you're not able to do that big, broad goal and you want to set them into more manageable parts, it depends on you as an individual.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Taveen Blackwood is asking, can we get access to the sample SIP that Ms. Radigan presented?
Dr. Dice?
Yes. Yes, we will share the template. Yes. We need to cut it down a little bit, but we'll share it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sandra Morris Porter is asking, what is the role of the board in the preparation of the SIP, the SIP?
All right. So your board is supposed to be a part of your SIP team. And it may not be the entirety of the board. It may be just your board chair or vice chair, but someone from the school board should be a part of your SIP team. Now, what they do is to ensure that your SIP is being created within the best interest of your school. And someone from the board being on your SIP team, it means that when it comes time for ratification, it will be easily ratified because they were there from the inception.
Awesome. Perseverance. That's an interesting name. Perseverance is asking, hi Perseverance, how you doing? It said the SIP template is the SIP template across the OECS and available for St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well?
Well, we have to understand their school improvement plan system. Right now, our expert here, Miss Radigan, is using Jamaica's template and the system, the school improvement plan, how they do it in Jamaica, in this presentation, so people can have an idea of how to organize theirs across the Caribbean and Central America. The thing is, we don't have access right now. We can get access to the OECS ones, but we are not focusing on that in this one. So we're asking everyone to just look at the format as it is from Jamaica and see how best they can use the concept and apply it to their own local situations.
Yes, awesome. You know, education, we don't reinvent the wheel, we emulate. So that's a best practice. This Andrews Escape is asking, are there any source documents from the Jamaica model that can be shared? I guess that's still in line with what you're just saying, Dr. Dice. So Dr. Dice will be able to, whatever Ms. Radigan would like for us to share, then he'll pass that on and you can modify accordingly. Ella Oreste is asking, if it's one's first time doing the SIP, can it be done for a year?
The SIP is for 3 years. What you pull out for a year is your operational plan. So your operational plan, you have year 1, year 2, year 3.
Okay, thank you. Bernadine is asking, actually, she said that this is a very vital information. I'm excited as well as scared, as this is a lot to be accomplished. From your experience, what is the lowest minimum finance is required to expedite the SIP from start to end? And can you provide an example?
Finance. As I said to you, that your SIP, the finance part of your SIP depends on what you have in your kitty, which would be the financial resources that you have available to you, and how you plan to pull in extra funds to complete your projects. If you're from Jamaica, as I said to you, when you're doing your budget for your SIP, it has implications for the amount of money that will be approved for your institution. And therefore, you need to spend some time to carefully look at the cost of certain things that you're allotting money towards when you're putting financial aspect in your SIP. So there's no set fund, no set money for a school improvement plan. It depends on the size of your school, the projects you intend to undertake, and the source in which you plan to pull the funds from to carry out the SIP.
And if I might add, how much you are willing to reallocate resources, that is
Thank
key.
you.
I just want to emphasize that sometimes it doesn't necessarily require more financing. It just for you to look at your resources and reallocate. They say in Jamaica, turn your hand and make fashion. So Rochelle Smith Haslam said, so for clarity, the SIP team is different from the monitoring team. And these teams are these teams mandatory?
All right, so no, they're not different. Your monitoring team will come from your SIP team, should come from your SIP team, because it's at the administrative level. So you should pull your monitoring team. Your SIP can be up to 10 persons, depending on the size of your institution. And you want to pull these persons from that SIP committee.
Okay, wonderful. Dr. Dice, could you check YouTube to see if there are any questions over there as we continue, please?
Yeah, none, zero.
Okay,
Oh,
wonderful.
there's
Thanks.
a question here.
Dean
Are
Hunter.
schools expected to address all 10 objectives equally? All right, so your priority in your addressing the strategic objectives depends on your school. As I said, everyone's environment is different. You can't adopt a SIP from school A and take it to school B and think that it's going to help, because everyone environment, everyone needs are different. Now, it depends on what your SSC is saying. So suppose you have the support of the parents. You don't need to have a lot of goals and targets for one, but your students are underperforming. It means that this would have more depth. You're going to focus more on strategic objective number 7, because this is the one that is shouting out. And you will have priority areas in your SIP, focus areas. So 7 is one of them, at-risk students, one of them, the development and retooling of your teachers, one of them, policy development. All of them are equally important. But I'm just saying that depending on your environment, you may be good at policy making, good at having these things, but you're weak in other areas. So you may not want to put all your focus in 10, but drive more things, pump more money, more time, more everything into 7, and looking at your at-risk students, pulling in the technology to help them. So it depends on your environment. So it comes back down to leadership.
Okay. What is Kellyanne saying here? I'm not quite sure what that
A new SIP was introduced in SVG. What is SVG?
St. Vincent and the
Oh,
Grenadines.
St. Vincent. What was the rest of the question? Could
Yeah,
you
it
just
was
look at
kind
that
of
for
not
me?
complete.
Or not?
Oh,
I
she's
forgot.
just confirming that what we discuss here, it's kind of similar to what our principal went and discussed in a meeting 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So it
Okay.
covers what you did here. She's saying it's excellent because it covered
Okay.
what our principal did. So well, I think the Eastern Caribbean and you, Mrs. Ratigan, you're on the same page here. So that's good.
Okay, I wasn't able to
Yeah,
unpack that question.
yeah.
Thank you. I think that's we basically come to the end of our questions. Before I ask Dr. Dice to give his final words, and to, I'll say thank you to Ms. Radigan at the end. But we are very excited to notify you that next month we're going to have a combo, professional development combo, 3 or 4 presentations for the month of May. Dr. Dice and myself will be presenting on that rethinking of discipline. We did part 1. We have like 4 parts to do, but we basically will be doing a presentation. We're also going to be having a very special guest presenter from Jamaica. We'll tell your name later on. And we might be having 2 special guest presenters from Jamaica. And also, I will be doing a presentation on, in the Caribbean, students sometimes have problems with adults as far as protecting our students and student rights and abuse and all of that. So also we'll be giving a presentation on that. So we have at least 3 or 4 presentations for the month of May, and we're excited about that. So Dr. Dice, you want to give your final words, and then I'll just close out. Yeah.
Oh, yes. My final word is I want to thank everybody for being on. And I also want to thank Mrs. Rattigan here. We go way back. We have been doing this for a number of years now, where we have people getting them information to fill out their school improvement plan every year. And we try to do it around this time because we know that we're getting into the ending part of the year and you have to turn in some compliance documents. And it's stressful. It's very stressful. What I'm imploring people to do, especially those people across Jamaica, reach out to us. We'll link you up with Mrs. Ratigan. She has a wealth of knowledge, a wealth. She is a wellspring, I should say, of knowledge. And so she can assist with, because she's a consultant too for schools across the region. And what she can do is to set up these systems for you and make it easier so that you're not waiting until April or May to do the school improvement plan. If you remember, she said it start at the beginning of the year. Start early so that you don't stress yourself out. And if it's a 3 year plan, start early and gradually work your way into this data collection and presentation. So it's very important because it's not going to go anywhere far from us. The school improvement planning, and these are compliance requirements. So you have to fill it out. You have to do it. So you need to get, ahead of the game and work at it. And it will come very manageable to you. It's not easy, but it's more manageable to you. And set up your teams. She talks about the teams a lot. Set up your team so that you're not the only one as a principal doing the work. You shouldn't be the only one doing the work. You should have people around you doing the work. And the other thing is our workshops that are coming up in the summer. Get on board, register. If you have struggles with, we offer it very, very low cost. The costs are even killing us. But we want to offer these based on our background and giving back the region, Central America and the Caribbean, to give back. And that's why we are trying to make it very affordable because we know that people budgets are tight everywhere. So if you look in the system, if you need a little bit further discount, if you want to talk about affordability, talk to us and we can work around it. Another thing that is coming up in late June or so is that we're going to roll out a school membership in ESI, in our nonprofit Education Solution International. And what it does is you pay a little annual fees, very little, and we will provide workshops for you. Those 2 days that you have for um, professional development days that you have in the year, we will provide workshops for individual schools who are members in our network. So think about that before we start sending out emails for your school to become a part of that. And it's super, very, very affordable. It's actually cheaper than what you would pay somebody for 1 day to come into your school and do workshop. And you're gonna do that you're paying that for the entire year. Because of all our travels, we have seen across the Caribbean and Central America that people are paying a whole lot for professional development when they get people to come in. And even though we're coming from the US and elsewhere, we are from the Caribbean and we grew up there. We know this. We're on the ground, we understand, and we want to give as much as possible. And we have a wealth of knowledge in our network. And so we want to give back a lot. So look out for those and make sure you become a part of it. But connect with us, connect with Mrs. Radigan here for help, for assistance, and for a thought partner in school leadership. And you will never go wrong. And she's a very genuine person as well. So that's what I wanted to share with people. And I'm gonna swing it back to you here. I'm dropping the link for the end of workshop survey in the chat so people can fill it out. And
Question,
for the
Dr.
one,
Dice. The individuals who participated in just part two, how will this certification process work for that?
yeah, good
individuals?
question. So what will happen, because this is a 2 session workshop, you will you must fill out the end of workshop survey for session 1 last week, and we can send you numerous times. We're sending it to emails, so we'll send it to you again if you need it. You must fill it out, and you must fill out the survey for today because it's 2 sessions, and we have to have accountability that some people were in the workshop. Now, if you weren't here, we didn't see you on it, then we'll send you the link to watch the presentations, and then you can fill out the survey for each session. So you have 2 sessions, you have 2 surveys. You must fill them out, and then that will get you in position to get a certificate of completion. So that said, no, after this, even to next week, even next month, you can still do the same thing and get a certificate because we're sending it out in our network, and all the other workshops that we have done in our network from the start of the year, you have access to them and you have access to this end of workshop certificate for all of them. You can go through them, answer the questions in the workshop survey, the end of workshop survey, and you get your certificates too. So we'll share that over and over because the workshops, we set them to expire the end of June, the 30th of June, or the first week of July, and that will close off the year of professional development, and it's a lot of them per month. We have done over this year. Now, we will have them access to them private access on our platform. When we start next year again, we'll do the same format, but different workshops, except for maybe school improvement plan. We'll offer that again sometime in April next
And to
year. But
interject, Dr. Dice will be sending out a survey for you to tell us what you need. So
oh
it's
yeah,
not
we
just going to be
always
us say, hey, we're going to be presenting this. You will tell us what you need, and we will tailor the professional development based on your needs, presenting needs.
right. Right. So look out for all of those. And if you need anything, reach out to us in our network. You have our email address. Reach out to us and we'll get you situated. All right. I'm handing back over to you so you can close.
Okay, and I'd
Yeah.
like to endorse your commendation for our presenter, Mrs. Radigan, and I would like, I know you're going to be saving the comments because I like for her to see these amazing comments that
Yeah.
were sent out to her, and the questions. We had so many questions. As I said last week, my Gloria Taylor, who was my supervisor when I served as a teacher, she said, that students are learning when they start asking questions. So you can tell that we were learning today. Thank you again. And for all the participants, this would not have been successful without your participation. So thank you so much, coming in from all across the Caribbean and other parts of the world. And you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you next month, same place for the combo. Listen out, we'll be sending out a flyer that will share with you the various topics that we'll be speaking on when it gets closer to April, May. All right, thank you. Take care, everyone.